everyone. Come on in. I am reporting live outside of the Southern District of Florida Federal Court building. And as you all know, we have been reporting on the Megan Peak versus Milagro Cooper. So as you come in, please make sure that you hit the like button. And if you are new to the channel, welcome. If you've been rocking with your girl for a minute, welcome back. I just wanted to utilize this time to let you all know what happened this morning. It looks like this afternoon. Of course, it's a plane. Why not? Of course, this afternoon, it looks like they will have closing. The morning did begin with Milagro's continued cross-examination by Meg's attorneys. And then there was recross by Milagro's attorneys. And then Meg Thee Stallion got back on the stand because they wanted to question her. They played her his video, part where she talks about bleeding Pino, gets to point out the alcohol. So she got questioned about that. And then they talked about the gag order, how the order was in place, with those little snippets, I guess, on bullying when people were asking her about that. What she meant by, did she know she had a gag order and all of that. But we're going to get into this cross-examination right quick. Please make sure, like I said, hit the like button. Let everybody know that we are on. Yeah, double tap that screen. Thank you so much, Tracy. I'm so used to going through StreamYard. I don't know all the protocol, but that's why I got fabulous moderators. So what they did on, that whether Milagro should be considered media is one of the biggest contentions of this trial right now, because it has its implications, right? So because media has become an issue, Meg's attorney came back to discuss media. So he starts out by asking her, do you know the ethics of a journalist? Do you know the ethics, the code of ethics? And she said no. And then they also pulled up her deposition where they asked her the same question, and she had said no at one point. She was saying that, so they pull up this ethics form, and he basically said, you can get that online, right? You know it's online, so you can know the rules and the ethics and the code of conduct. Have you done anything since we told you about this and you said you want to be media to look into the ethics and the code of conduct? She's like, no. No, would you be surprised if I told you that you can get that over here on the internet? She said, no, you can pretty much find anything over here on the internet. So then they asked her, well, why do you want that status? Why do you want the status of being considered media? She said, I deserve that. I'm new media. She keeps calling it new media. And she said to strip her of that would be a disservice. And then the question was, do you know that the status, it comes with obligations? Do you expect to be held to those same obligations? And she said, well, you're trying to apply an older code that's not relevant to me because I'm new media. So what he does was, the attorney pulls up the ethics code and then starts going up and said, we want to know what's going to apply to new media since you calling this new media. So it almost sounds like they're creating the rules that would actually apply to new media. So you're saying that new media and the rules need to change, like because it's new media that they're going to have to change some. So I want you to look at the preamble here, and they talk about truth. Will new media adhere to the ethics that you have to operate in truth and put the truth out there? She said yes. And then they said, okay, so why don't you read this next one to yourself? In new media, are they going to be allowed to deliberately distort facts? Are that going to be allowed? Or do you have to do some type of context? She said no, distorting the facts is not going to be allowed. Look at the right side over there where that triangle is and read that to yourself. What about compassion? The ethics code says you have to have compassion for those that are abused, those that are victims, those that are vulnerable. Are you going to have compassion? She said, well, I believe, yes, it has to be compassion, but to an extent, like I have to clarify. She said the compassion part, that got to be tweaked a little bit because we have a comedic side to ours. So we're kind of funny and, we do some, we say some jokes. And sometimes our jokes may come out harsh. So as entertainers, you should have the freedom to be able to tell your jokes. And she said, so then they went on to the heightened sensitivity. Would that be a part of the new media? She said, oh, sure. So then they start talking again about the deep fake video and about the deep fake video and the cat video, because they talked about you're not supposed to, the word attack kept coming up. So it was something within the code of ethics about people feeling attacked, I believe. I'm gonna have to pull it up. I'm gonna have to pull up what the actual sheet is. But she said, he said, would you allow for someone to feel like their people can see, or if they feel like the deepfake video and the cat video is an attack? Said, listen, that's how the world works. Everybody has differences of opinions. So then they go and they said, do you see where it says that you need to act independently? Look over there at that second triangle. You got to act, read it to yourself. And then she said, yeah, I see that. They said, and then they also tell you, you have to avoid the special treatment. You avoid payment. You avoid gifts. You avoid all of that. Is that new media? They gonna do that too? She said, well, I feel like you shouldn't accept anything that will alter your opinion. So if this type of gifting or special treatment will somehow alter your opinion, and yeah, that would be I think that should be something with the media. But then she kind of mentioned, oh, well, I've seen journalists, with celebrities online, which she feels like even the legacy media kind of alters their opinion to a degree, like because of their relationship with certain celebrities or leans one way or whatnot. So then they say, well, in the ethics, he said you have to acknowledge your mistakes and explain your corrections clearly and promptly. Is new media going to be held to that standard too? Is that going to be held to that standard as well? She said yes. She said, I've reported when things are incorrect. She said, I've made mistakes that I've had to rectify, and I had to walk it back. I think that is an essential part of it. And what she was referring to was, as some of you all had mentioned, there was a point of which there was an allegation that the gun was missing in this case with Tory. Bullet fragments, I guess, were missing. And the LAPD, there was a tweet by Megan Cuniff, and she was saying the LAPD has confirmed that basically all that information is still at the LAPD. And so when she was on the audio, she corrected and said, okay, well, now we know that it's there. So I think it's a good thing, even though she kind of equated it and said, when they showed the whole video, she was saying that now something about Kelsey being tested or something like that. But she was like, yeah, I think it's a good thing. So she showed, yeah, when I made a mistake, I came on there and I walked it back. And I told them I made a mistake. And then they said, now when it came to the Tory case, like, how did you report that case? And she said, well, did you report that Tory shot Mad? So she said she reported that he was found guilty. That she said she told all the details. She said he was guilty. That's what they said. But she said a lot of the stuff that she said was her point of view. Like what she said after that was pretty much her point of view. So let me get up and walk away from here because Jesus. Hold on, y'all. You know, I gotta make sure ain't nobody hearing this, because I ain't trying to be. They like, we seen one of the jurors, or we seen somebody that was. All right, y'all. Sorry, guys, I had to get up because I'm not trying to be a part of this case for trying to give y'all some commentary. All right, let's go. She talked about how she reported the details of the case. Her issue, yes, it is gorgeous out here. Her issue is that she just didn't believe a lot of the stuff that happened in the case. She felt like everything, like how the attorneys were saying, it was convoluted, because she said, well, I did hear the gun. She said, well, the gunshot, the glass, she originally said it was glass. And then she said, but then we find out that, I can't even see y'all on here. This sun is, hold on. Let me go under here. All right. Trying to avoid people and avoid these chickens too. Shoot. Jesus. Sorry, guys. Hit that like button now. I'm trying to get it together. All right. Make sure I ain't at the chicken's house over here. She said, she was just reiterating that she still has her opinion, even though he was found guilty. We heard that. And of course, the glass came up again. She said she stepped on glass prior, so the glass thing was still there. But she said she did hear gunshots because she heard the audio, so she believed it was some gunshots. So they asked her, well, do you think she stepped on glass and that it was some gunshot? Then she said she heard something about, I guess Meg must have told the hospital. Maybe it was on some body cam or something. I don't know. She said something about stepping on glass a couple of days prior. So then they said, well, after the conviction, you still talking about Meg, right? She said, well, when it came to the glass situation, the fragments that was taken out of her foot, it got lost. But again, there was a tweet that apparently the fragments are not lost. Some people were saying that in my chat yesterday, and I didn't recall that. But apparently she said that a police officer said that on the stand, and that may have happened. But yeah, it was on the internet where they said that was not true. So she said, I feel like that was suspicious when the fragments were missing. So then the attorney said, but the glass is just irrelevant, right? We know she got shot. So why we still talking about glass? And we know that she actually got shot. Regardless, it's irrelevant. She said, I don't think it's irrelevant. It wasn't irrelevant in my mind. And you don't get to dictate how my mind works. Like I said, if I'm wrong, I don't have a problem correcting myself like I did with the gun. She said, so yes, I will say that new media has corrected themselves. So again, like the first part, they were really going about putting up these ethics. And if this is supposed to be a new media and you want to be considered different than this new media, what does this look like? So then when she said about the gun, when she was saying, well, the gun was found, they said that the gun was at the LAPD. The attorney said, well, that's not really you taking back what you said. You're doubling down on your conspiracy theory. That's all you were doing. She was like, no, well, it was reported that the gun wasn't available or was unavailable or lost or whatever they said the gun was. She said the whole time Tory's team, or that he wanted the gun tested, and I guess they were told that the gun wasn't there to be tested and the fragments were gone. So they were saying he didn't have it. So she said once it was addressed and she found out what the truth was, then she readdressed it. So then they said, well, do you on purpose try not to look at things that make Tory look guilty? She was like, no, I don't do that. So I was a Meg fan at first. I wasn't even a Tory fan. I'm about the truth. And I personally felt like something was wrong with this case. I felt like something was going on. So then they asked her, well, do you recall the question about new media and you saying that you were labeled as a reporter when you were on this HBO documentary? And she said, sure. She said, but I have to go back and relook at it. But yeah, I believe that I was introduced that way as a reporter. So then they pull up, I guess, the video, and it was to refresh her recollection. And when you look on it, you know how when you go on these shows and they have the headings and the subtitles and all of that on who you are. And I think she was like introduced as a content creator or something they had on there, but it was just to refresh her recollection. So they didn't ask her to say what it said, but they was like, would you agree that doesn't say that you're a reporter? And she was like, well, that clip does not say, that I'm a reporter, but it was like written down. You know how they just have who you are next to your name or whatnot. So then they said, and what you do you have to judge credibility? She said, yes, in the criminal cases, we do. She said, so in your news and fact gathering, do you get a lot of information from different sources? And she says, on the show, yes, she could get information from articles, court documents, video. She has a number of ways to get information. And she said that if she doesn't get it specifically, like say she gets some type of gossip where somebody called and they like, oh, Billy got the tea, then she'll say it's a rumor with no regard. So she'll let everyone know, like, I don't really have the support for it, but she'll let her followers know, take it as what it is, as a rumor with no regard. Then she said, yeah, I'll, they said, well, you do that for what? With things that have to do with, I understand you doing that with gossip, tea. What about Tory Shaw Meg? Can you gossip about that? And she was like, well, absolutely, because there's so many different layers that leave room for speculation. Like, it's not just about the shooting portion, but people have speculated what happened at Kylie's house, what happened at the. So there's so many different layers that, yeah, you do want to get into the background, which would kind of come across, I guess, as you trying to get the tea. And she talked about how this is just a different day and age. Well, now you have celebrities. Well, they'll come online and they'll talk for themselves. And this is something new. This is not what would happen in the past, where you had celebrities that just come online. But now they'll come online and they'll say stuff and try to get ahead of stuff. And then you'll be able to look and see a celebrity and say, well, they contradicted themselves. So you have all this information that you want to talk about as well from celebrities' own mouths of them being online as much as they are. So then the prosecutor said, do you have the voicemail where they saying the alleged shooter apologizing for something? And so one conclusion would be that he was apologizing for shooting Meg. And she said, well, I'm a critical thinker. I think society need to work on their critical thinking. People could perceive it one way or another way, because the way I look at it is, that doesn't make sense that he calls her best friend, he just shot her, but the best friend is calm online, talking to him on this recorded line, and then met up with him after the fact. Her whole actions and demeanor talking about Kelsey didn't make any sense. So from that, I guess from her tone and how she acted, that was why she was suspicious on whether it was an apology. Just hit that like button, y'all. She said, "You do you have to?" He asked her, "Do you have to evaluate the credibility of your sources?" She said, "Yeah, non-credible people. She doesn't give them much weight." So then they said, "Well, what about you with this cat video? Like the fact that you shared it?" And she was saying, I don't know. I think the question was more geared towards whether about him talking about Meg in this cat video. And she said, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that was because he was in a butcher shop. So I was like, I don't even know. It could be a horse leg. It could not be a horse leg. That's why I asked the question on my Twitter, is that a horse leg? Because I'm like, it could be. It could not be. I don't know, because I've never seen horses in a butcher shop. So maybe it wasn't even a horse leg. She said, I wasn't the person that did the treatment. There's people that do treatments in the video. So that would be the proper person to tell you what the meaning was in that video. Can you say that he was taunting her in that video? Well, I can't say that he was necessarily taunting her in that video because I don't really know like what the video was about. And basically she was saying like Meg was going through a lot. Like she was going through so many different things. So you really don't know what a lot of this stuff is going on. She interprets things almost like she's in her own world. Just like when she saw the picture of her and the father, and she interpreted it was one way. And so almost like she's just sensitive. It was giving she's sensitive to some of this stuff. So she may think things are talking about her and they may not necessarily be talking about her. That's just the way she's perceiving it. So they asked her about the PTSD and she know what it was, and she said she wasn't aware, of course, that Meg had PTSD, but she said she's aware about PTSD because she has it herself. But she said she don't believe in that expert that came on because she felt that expert opinion wasn't complete and it wasn't thorough. And she went on for a long time where she was saying the expert came on, she only had information about Milagro, but she didn't have information about anybody else, and said you guys are putting up the ethics. Then you just put up the ethics about money. This lady got paid a whole lot of money. She got paid a whole lot of money and was like, just like, so she biased. She didn't even look at nobody else but me. She wasn't thorough, and she got paid all this money. And she specifically said that lady was paid a hefty amount of money. And she should have known about Meg going through it with her record label. She should have known that at that time Meg was going through a breakup. She should have also known that, her ex-boyfriend had put out a diss track, and all these people put out diss tracks. There are too many key things. She should have known about what was going on with Nicki Minaj. But when it comes to Nicki Minaj and all of them, she just turned that off. With them platforms, it don't bother her. She said, and then people are still sending her stuff. She got her manager still sending her stuff. She trying to be offline, but they still sending her stuff. So then she said she felt like this was targeted and that she was being bullied. And she said, but I'm built, I'm tough, so I'm going to be okay. So they said, so you trying to blame everyone else? That's what your argument is? You trying to blame everyone else, but you don't want to take accountability for your portion of what we're saying, of what she's saying happened to her. And she said, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't agree with you saying like I have more impact, or I have more impact on her than Nicki Minaj. So then they asked, do you teach your kids to take accountability? Do you model accountability to your children? And they said, do you tell her like do you show this to them on a daily basis? She said, well, I'm not a parent that's a don't do as I say, not as I do person. She said her daughters are aware. They have any type of issues, they address them, they come to her, and they know how to articulate. They're very smart young ladies, so if it's any issues, they'll come. And she said, I think you're trying to trigger me for talking about my kids. But I highly doubt that they'll ever be in a situation like this. So then they said, why is your defense that everybody did it too? Why can't you just talk about what you did? And that's when she started talking about because she feel like she's targeted, she was bullied. And she said, when I looked at these text messages, and it shows that she was talking to Desiree in the text messages. So they've been collecting on her since 2022. Then you had someone testify they heard about rumors of a lawsuit in early 2024. And then later on, that's when they actually filed a lawsuit. I do feel it looks like to me that I was targeted. And she says she just doesn't even understand why she's the one that's here. She feels like she's being attacked. And she said, honestly, I feel like with Meg, anybody that's attached with Tory, it seems like she has a problem with it. If they have some type of placement, I guess, next to her. So she mentioned an issue with the model, Winnie Harlow. And I guess it was something where Meg must have been offended, and Winnie Harlow apologized to Meg about it. And Meg said something about if she saw her, she should beat her if she saw her. So she brought that up and said it just seemed like she got an issue with anybody that gets close to Tory. And then she said, and I feel like this whole case is just being retried because it's just, I'm here, you sued me, you got certain claims, but you're not talking about the claims. You keep talking about this trial, talking about the criminal trial. I'm frustrated about it. And she said, but you haven't even proven your claims. We've been sitting here and you haven't proven your claims. And she brought it up again about the manager giving her all of this different information, and she feels like they the ones that really is causing her harm, that it ain't her. So then again, they get into the deep fake. She said she didn't know it was fake. She said, and honestly, it must have looked real to Meg too, because she apologized to her manager. What was she for what he saw? If it looked fake, then what would she be apologizing for? So she's saying she thought it was real. And that's when the attorney said, you do know, even if it was real and it was posted without her consent, that's still illegal too, right? She said, listen, I'm a commentator. All I did was facilitate the conversation. I didn't create the way our culture is. I didn't create the fact that people are interested in, I guess, these type of videos and that type of content. She said she wasn't bothering Meg. It was things that was trending. And she said, I only talk about Meg when she's trending. So she may come up again because she's a celebrity. That's it. But basically, if you see my lineup, I don't just talk about Meg all the time. So then they played a video that somebody mentioned to me last night. Apparently on Station Head, she mentioned whoever posted the video, they got 4.8K likes. And she said, I just liked the tweet. I just liked it and tweeted, watch how the video jumps. Watch how many people are about to go to it now. So they played that video. And I was preferring, confirm, I guess they were using obviously to confirm the promotion part. But then they asked her, why didn't you had other options, right? Why would you just post it? Why didn't you try to reach out to Meg's team and see like, hey, is this real? That was an option, right? You could have confirmed it before putting it out there like that. She said, listen, the point is, it was already in the world. I do commentary. It wasn't about that. I was just doing commentary on what was out there. When I said go to the likes, she was saying that on Station Head, those are the people that pay her. So it's a lower amount of people, I guess, that would have been going over there. So she didn't say that. She was talking about on Twitter, if she said go to my likes, nobody would know what she's talking about, because they used to have where it shows all the likes that you have done. It'll list all the likes, and she said she likes a lot of stuff, so they wouldn't even know what she was talking about. Now I guess when she did the audio on Station Head, those people probably would have known, because that's what they were talking about. But just random on Twitter, they wouldn't even know what she was talking about, because she said she likes posts all the time. So then they showed, she had an audio, and she said, I'm not about to post this. I'm going to let Ninja Girl post it. So they like, well, who is Ninja Girl? I think they thought that it was a whole different person. But apparently this is what Milagro calls herself, and she has a page that's that. And so I guess she was going to post it at one point on her other page, and it wasn't posted because she just ended up not posting. She's like, I'm glad I didn't post it. And then in part of the audio, she says she recognized she had multiple mob PIs and in that same audio. But I don't think she ended up posting it. It doesn't sound like she posted it even on her Ninja Girl spot. But he's like, I'm not going to say the N-word, but, does that say N-word, girl? Like, who is that? She said, oh, that's me. He was like, what? Oh, that's me. I think he was a little culture shock. Like, what? People just call themselves that? Said, so instead of saying just leave it alone, you said I'm going to post it on my other account? Like, why didn't you just leave it alone? And she said, well, thank God I didn't actually post it on her account. So then they put up where on her mobradioofficial.com, like on that website, it was a screenshot where it had watch the exclusive on Twitch, and it had her Cash App. And that was a screenshot, I guess, of the video of Meg, but it was covered up with an emoji. And because she had her Cash App, she said, yeah, my platforms aren't monetized. She said because essentially YouTube and all these other spots, they got restrictions. And she knows her content doesn't comply with those restrictions. So what she does is she'll say, like, who gonna give me the $20? And she waits on her people to support her, basically. And again, she talked about, they say you didn't get money and get a relationship and your money, your trips and all that with Daystar's father until after Meg got shot, right? She's like, no, like sometimes what happens is you interview someone and you connect. And she said in the way she didn't have her father, he was a father figure in his religion and how he was, and so he came in. I told you my dad wasn't there and he's dead now. And so she said he stepped in. They just ended up garnering a relationship. But she mentioned the Zales were for the birthdays and the money for her kids and all of that. So they said, are you they asked her about what's her goal going viral, and she said, well, my goal ain't really to go viral because I'm not monetized. You know, I just have a connection with my fans. I have a connection with my people. So that's what's important to me, is the relationship that I have with them. And then she also talked, she said, and I'm like their family, like the close connection that she has. And she talked about her affirmation at the end that she gives to after every show. And then at the end, she let them know that she loved them and they all in this together. So at the end of the day, regardless of what the contention is, they family and they all in this together, and she loved them if nobody else does, to the capacity that she knows how. So then they said, well, if you know that you a powerful source, why would you pick up a cause like Free Tory? Wouldn't it be awful, if terrible, if the Free Tory, you're saying Free Tory and he really did it? She said, yeah, I mean, it would be terrible, but I mean, that's just not what she does not believe, I guess, the narrative on what goes on with Tory that's out here. So then they said, you go on these live rants. This is the attorney. You talk about you're going lying assholes. And this is him saying, he like lying asshole, running people over with cars. If you say that type of stuff and you like 6 inches away from her, do you think that would get physical? Like, why would you say that type of stuff online? And she said, are you saying that Megan would beat me up if I said that type of stuff? No, I'm asking the question about, don't you think when you say that type of words to somebody, if you're in their face, that's not going, like, it would bother somebody and that wouldn't go over well. She said, well, if you listen to what I was saying, I was telling y'all I ain't about to fight her because she way bigger than me. So I don't plan on fighting her. So then they pulled up a video where she was talking about Unite the People, and that she obviously is in contact with them so she can get information from them. And they asked, well, were you in here for the testimony of Caesar, the CEO? Yes. And have you looked in to see how much finances that Tory has given to Unite the People? She said, no, I didn't look at that. Then she mentioned again how her representation was supposed to be free, and she felt like it was a relief for her. And they said, well, didn't you heard the conversation about even Tory being concerned about the conflict? That didn't concern you? She said, yeah, well, it concerned me. But she was like, but at the end of the day, she needed that relief because she didn't have that type of money. And so then they asked her something else. She said, am I not supposed to be asked the same question twice? Why you ask me the same questions? So then it was a message they put, and I guess it was supposed to be from Tory. And she was like, that Instagram. They said, but you don't have that Instagram anymore. And she said Instagram was deleted, so she don't have the messages. And then I guess she deleted the WhatsApp or something as well. So, but she said that she had a screen recording where she recorded all the stuff that was in the WhatsApp, and she turned it over. I'm trying to see if it's anything. Because I want to get to the shoot. It's going to be time to go back in. Dang. Some of this stuff got really redundant. So it was a lot of objections because he called Milagro in his case in chief. So he asked a lot of these questions. So her attorneys kept on objecting to the point where the judge was like, we're going to take a brief recess. Y'all need to talk, because they started objecting to ask and answer because he talked about it in his case in chief. So then they did a redirect, of course. This is the crazy part, y'all. I got to say this before I have to go in. So remember, she did the HBO special. And as you guys recall earlier, she had testified before that she was described as being a reporter. But when you look at the actual screenshot of it, it shows that the HBO actually label her as, they didn't label her as a reporter. So they pull up for her to refresh. She said, I know I was called a reporter somewhere in that documentary. So they let her listen to it to refresh her recollection on whether she was called a reporter. Basically, Megan Cuniff, she was over there on fire at that gallery looking like, so y'all just gonna let her what is this? So Megan Cuniff, apparently they were asking her a question, and she said, yeah, there have been many reporters, not your non-traditional reporters, I guess, that have been here too covering this trial. So she said she interpreted that to mean that she was being recognized by legacy media as a reporter. I was like, Megan was looking like, what? So y'all just come and think that. She was over there in the corner like, what? Y'all hit the like button. So then she also said that she stopped paying her attorney, so she started crying. Like she said, Jeremy hasn't been paid because she doesn't have it. She wished she did, but he believes in her cause, so that's why he's continuously doing it. And she was crying and stuff, very teary. And then the two young ladies that came on, they also are not getting paid, that just came on. So she was saying that she's not able to pay them. Tory's not paying them. Unite the People's not paying them. They just basically, she was showing that she don't really got the money to be funding this case. It's just that she got people that's willing to do this for her because of this. So they asked her, was she present at any of the evidentiary hearings? And she was like, no. So they don't know why. She doesn't know why certain information might have been left out or why it was admitted. And then also that the tweet from Megan Cuniff where she was saying about the LAPD that she had basically knew she made a mistake and she walked it back when she found out about that she may have said the wrong thing. So they talked about, well, with the code of ethics, she was abiding by the code of ethics when she had done it. So then they said, well, how long was this go to my likes post up? And she said only about 15 minutes, if that much, about the go to my likes. And they asked her, why was she talking about Meg? She said, because Meg just stay in the media. She keep doing, it's like she stays in the media. That's why we keep talking about her. And then they showed that, I guess, she wasn't the one where they showed the screenshot where it said you can watch this in my Twitch or wherever. She was sharing from somebody else's Facebook page who had the link, and on the front cover of the picture it had the emoji to cover her body. So she was like, that was the one that she showed and reviewed. It wasn't like she showed the one of her being covered. It wasn't the one with her body. You don't see any private parts. So she did her commentary on the redacted version. So they said on the audio, so that's one of the things that keep getting played, where she keeps saying, I'm not a reporter. I'm not a reporter. I never said I was an MF reporter. Where y'all get that from? Da 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 da. She said that what she meant was she's trying to be put in a box. People are weaponizing it, the word by the title. And not everything is not meant to be journalistic. Some things are entertainment. And you do your own research. You do your own research just like you would do, with traditional reporter. So she gave her definition. She said, this is traditional versus new media. She said she feels like journalists are the people that are on the ground asking questions, gathering information. It could be for months, days, weeks. And they do this on everyday topics. The reporters are the people in front of the camera. So they take the information from the journalists and then they go on camera and they tell about it. And she said new media are elements of both, but you add entertainment. And that's what we have to have, something special about us to make people want to watch us. And YouTube and Twitch and all of those are just platforms that have allowed us to have a voice. And she also mentioned that people don't trust media like that, trust legacy media like they used to, because they are biased. And some people lack the trust in the legacy media. And she says she does fact check. And then she said, well, aren't there bloggers here today that are covering this case? And she's like, yes. Just because you're friends with someone, does that mean that you can't report in a fair way? And she said, oh, absolutely, I can still report in a fair way. She mentioned Jason Lee is cool with Rihanna. And she said they don't always say, they loud over here, hold on. She said they don't always say nice things about Rihanna, but they still go out, hang out, have dinner, drink, do all of that. You know, well, I don't want to say drink, let me scratch that. But she was saying they hang out and they go out to dinner at the end of the day, but he reports what he has to. So just because you're friends with somebody, because obviously she's friends with Tory, doesn't mean that she's going to be biased about it. So that's what she was saying. So there's that. So that is it. We're going to get on off of here. You said what? But that's it. I just wanted to give y'all that. I'm about to go back on here and keep it moving. And yeah, I ain't gonna make it to get no lunch because it's 1:24. But they probably had closing in the afternoon, so if they had closing, then I'm out. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later.